Good evening and Jai Hind everyone. We will start with today's public speaking classes. So today we will be talking about paint pictures with words, which is basically the art of descriptive speaking and language. This is our 8th class of public speaking, which we will be starting with today. Now, first of all, this is basically an interactive welcome or a mood check for you all. I want all of you to drop an emoji in the chat box which captures your energy, how energetic you are right now, and name your color according to your mood in the chat box. Okay, so let's move further. So today we will learn about we will define the art of sensory language, and we will master sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. We will also use various metaphors, similes, and strong action verbs. And we will also deliver at the end a short summary, a 60-second summary of what we basically discussed today. Now, this is basically a live poll where I want you all to say how easily you all paint pictures. Like level 1, you just say basic facts. Level 2, you use descriptive words sometimes. Level 3, you love using detail, and level 4, you are a master. You can paint anything you see. This is basically a live poll which I conducted. Now, starting with the section 1, the magic of imagery. So in this section, we will understand why descriptive language is the ultimate currency of great storytelling and public speaking. Yesterday, we discussed how we can use storytelling in our public speaking classes, in our public speaking while speaking. Today, we will discuss the descriptive language, the art, how it is the ultimate currency of storytelling in our public speaking. Now, before starting, let's discuss what is descriptive speaking. So, what is the definition of this? Descriptive speaking is the intentional use of sensory-rich language, vocal nouns, and metaphoric imagery to construct vivid, multi-dimensional relatives directly inside the mind of the audience. This is the bookish language of what descriptive speaking basically means. In layman language, it is the use of metaphoric imagery, or it is the use of how you use your vivid and how you use your imagination to build it inside the minds of the audience. Now, your goal isn't just to merely report the information. Your goal is to guide the audience's imagination. Your goal is to guide them so that they feel like they're standing in there, imagining what you are saying. They're there, they're seeing, hearing, experiences everything what you are experiencing. You have to take them from the real world to the world you want them to imagine. Now, why does this matters? Now, descriptive power basically matters because vivid description light up the brain's sensory cortex, forcing listeners to stay highly alert and logged into your presentation. This means that descriptive power matters because it makes the audience to listen, to stay alert and logged up in your presentation. It builds an emotional bond between you and the audience. It connects you immediately. It builds an emotional connect between you. And the third, when you just present raw data, raw facts, or just information, people quickly forget that. But if you present it through art, if you present it through storytelling, if you use descriptive power, then they would never forget it. It would hit a striking between them. It would hit a striking on them, and they will never ever forget it. Now, storytelling versus just reporting. What is the difference between storytelling and just speaking? So basically, storytelling is when you use a story, you use your imagination, your vivid and immersive imagination to take the audience towards yourself. And just reporting is basically when you present data, when you present raw data instead of explaining what you have within yourself. For example, quote information where you presented is, we went on hike yesterday up a steep mountain path. It was extremely tiring and the view from the summit was very nice and colorful. This is just normal reporting style. And the storytelling style is, our boots crunched over loose, jagged gravel as we ascended the mystic peak. Panting, we stood on the cold edge, gasping as the glorious burst of crimson and amber light shattered the grey horizon. This is the storytelling style. In this, also, your voice, pitch, and how you deliver it matters. Now, moving on further, in the next, we have the golden rules. What are the golden rules which you should keep in mind? When you tell facts only, like the classroom was hot, but when you show the sensory experiences, it gives a tactile touch. This means that if it drags them to hear you, it drags them to feel what you are saying. When you tell facts only, for example, you tell the storm was terrifying. Instead of that, you use another which has sound and sight, which means that you use your sound, you use your sensory experience to present what you want to say. And the third is visual sight. You present the surrounding, you tell how the surrounding is, you tell the backstory of what you want them to listen, what you want them to experience. These are the basic three golden rules, or the basic three sensory answer which you all should keep in mind while delivering. Now, this is the second poll, where you have to identify which of the options on the right successfully shows an experience rather than just telling it. These are some sentences, and you have to tell which successfully shows an experience rather than just telling it. Okay, so now moving on further. Moving on to the section 2. In this section, we will master the 5 senses, which means we will master how we can use all of our 5 senses in our public speaking while delivering our story or while delivering what we are speaking. Now, the first is sense of sight. Now, these are basically some specific guidance or some specific things which you all can do to attract the sense of sight of the audience. Now, if you use any PPT or if you use any reference while speaking, you have to avoid primary colors. Use rich, detailed colors that carries weight. For example, replace red with crimson, ruby, or rust. Replace blue with midnight blue and cobalt. You have to use rich colors which show the weight of what you are speaking. The next is shadows, textures, and scales. Now, what you have to do is you have to incorporate the spatial dimension and lighting condition of your environment, which means that you have to use flickering, building, gloomy, or shimmering. This means that you have to incorporate the lighting conditions of your environment. You have to see the lighting conditions. You have to use the lighting conditions which are around you. You have to use your environment specifically while speaking. Now, the before and after. What change does this make? The before is plain. For example, the old house was big, dark. It looked very scary to go inside, and the yard had dead trees. And the after is where you used these sense of sights while speaking. Now, the after is the Victorian mansion gloomed under the grey dusk. It flagged windows staring out like hollow eyes over a yard cocked with ganned leafless branches. In this, you used basically all the sense of sight. You used your environment. You explained the base story with heavy examples, with heavy words brought basically that brought the weight of what you are trying to speak. Now, the next sense of sound. Three basic rules while you are delivering the sense of sound. You have to activate sound verbs. For example, you have to replace basic general nouns with specific sound actions. For example, if you have to say someone said something in a really low voice, you can say mutter, you can say creak, you can say whisper. Do not just use basic nouns, replace them with sound actions. The second one is use such words that echo like an actual sound. If you have to say that someone was in pain, you can say they hissed in pain, or you can say that they buzzed like a bee. You can say that. And the third one is vocal delivery. You have to match your volume and you have to speak to the noise you are describing, and you have to whisper quiet scenes, expand on loud ones. This means that you have to enhance your vocal delivery according to the story you are saying. You have to speed up to the noise you are describing or lower down your voice you are describing. The sense of sound is a really important one while you say anything. Now, what upgrade does this do? When before, for example, you said the old car started up and made a really loud noise. It sounded terrible. And the after is the upgraded version in which you used the sense of sound. The ancient engine coughed, sputtered, and finally rode to life with violent metallic screech that's echoed off the concrete walls. Here, you have seen that you replaced basic nouns with other words, and then you used the sound of the car here, screech. This makes a big difference while you are delivering your speech. Now, this is a little challenge for you all. What you have to do is you have exactly 60 seconds. You have to choose one of the scenes below, one of the scenes that I have described here. You have any of the three scenes, and you have to use some words. You have 60 seconds, a minute you have, and you have to describe in one sentence. At least you have to describe a word of all the three sentences which I have over here. Now, moving on to the next sense. The next sense is the sense of touch. Now, what you have to do is you have to make your listeners feel the object in your hands or under your feet. For example, you can use examples around you. You can use feather light, silky, powdery to describe the texture, specific weight of what you are saying. The second is the internal temperature and the physical atmosphere of your setting inside the audience's skin. The temperature with which you are describing, for example, you're talking about Antarctica. You can say frosty. frigid, bone chilling, such words which drop an internal temperature, which drop an internal matter on the audience. You can use such words to have impact on it. The next is sense of smell. How can you use sense of smell in your storytelling? Now, what you have to do you is in three ways you can do this. The first is pure nostalgia. Here, smells are directly linked to brain memory. You have to use sense which brings nostalgia to the audiences, which unlocks deeply rooted emotions in within them. The second is the scent category. You have to classify and detail the scent of your setting. For example, musty, earthy, pungent, crisp, or chemical. Describe the detail of your setting, how it is there. And the third is you have to combine scent with the temperature to trigger maximum visual focus. For example, the warm, buttery scent of toast versus the damp, cold scent of rain. You can mix up, combine the scent of temperature to trigger the focus of the audience. The next sense is sense of taste. Now, the first is flavor profiles. How you can use this? So, you can precise the taste profile to make your physical description appetizing. You have to describe your taste profile. For example, if you have to say sour, you can say tangy, acidic, etc. If you have to say sweet, you can say creamy, sugary, savory. And the second thing is you don't just name the taste. You have to describe how you felt. You have to describe how your face and mouth reacted to the physical experience so that audience can also feel it. For example, you have to say you can say watery, sizzling, smooth. The solid movement will remind us instantly. This is a sentence and example where you use where you have explained your experience by using the sense of taste. Now the critical taste. The before one. The taste. My grandma's kitchen was nice. The one another the, the updated is the sweet warm aroma of caramelized sugar and ground cinnamon wrapped around me like a hug the second I entered. On the counter sat of fresh cookies, chocolate chips, gooey and plenty. Oh, you describe how you felt, you describe your sense. You used senses and you upgraded your plain sentence after one to an upgraded blend which the audience which the audience wants to hear. Now, the very first game, the sensory detective. Now, here I have a sentence. You have to read the sentence and you have to detect the hiding words which distinct the senses, which represent the senses. I want the answers live right now. Am I audible and is my screen visible to you? If yes, please respond. Sorry for the disturbance. Let's continue. Now moving on with the section 3, that is the descriptive. Now moving on with the section 3, that is the descriptive speakers toolbox. In this, we will learn how we can replace the basic adjectives, the basic nouns with upgraded ones that brings instant attention. Now, the first tool is we need to replace the basic adjectives with upgraded ones. Now, first weak word or the lazy word is big. Now, you may ask what the problem is. The problem is the word big, it tells the scale, but it carries no impact on the audience. The audience is never least interested to listen when we speak lazy words. We can replace it with upgraded descriptors like towering, looming, etc. The second lazy word is nice or good. The problem here is it means it brings different meaning to each one of us. Instead, we can use delightful, breathtaking, glorious, etc. The third lazy word is bad. The problem with this is it is uninspired and lazy, and it does not point out details. We can use claustrophobic, dreadful, frightening, etc. The tool 2 is dynamic action verb. Now, why verbs outperform adjectives? Verbs carry movement, motion, rather than stacking multiple lazy adjectives on a weak verb. Replace the verb completely with a dynamic power alternative. What am I trying to say here? We can understand that with an example. For example, you say, he walks slowly, with shuffled, plodded, or founded. It replaced, she took it quickly with snatched, seized, plucked. You can see how when you replace he walked slowly with shuffled, fluttered, it brought instant attention, it brought physical emotion towards the audience. When you replaced she took it quickly with snatched, seized, or plucked, between you and the audience. Even this you can practice at your home. Now, this is word upgrade race. Now, we have a sentence over here. Your job, rewrite this sentence with dynamic adjective and power words. You have exactly 1 minute to do this activity. Okay, so now moving on further. The tool 3 is the simile. This is the visual bridge. Now you may ask, what is a simile? So simile is basically a direct comparison between two distinct words, like things, using the connector words like as or like, to build a mental anchor for the listener. Now you have to observe how simile creates instant imagery in the listener's brain or listener's brain. For example, you say the voice shook like dry autumn leaves rustling in a heavy mountain breeze. Here, you use simile, you use connector words, you use like word. This brought instant attention, and simile is used as a visual bridge to connect between two basic sentences or two basic things. The tool 4 is metaphor. Metaphor is direct substitution that states something is something else entirely. It cut connector's word, which we discussed before this. It forces a deep symbol. We can understand this with an example. For example, you say the school auditorium was an absolute frozen ice box and the principal's gaze was solid steel. This is where we removed like or as and we state that something is something else entirely. The school auditorium in reality is not a frozen ice box. We compare it without using connector words. This is where metaphor is used. Please give it a moment. Yeah. Now the game 3. Here we have to guess the mystery place. I have given a sentence over here. Now what you have to do, you have to figure out, you have to list multiple sensory clues together. I have given a over here. You can take your time and guess it in the chat. So this is the game 3 which I have brought for you. Now moving on to the section 4. The section 4 is anatomy of speech. Now here we will discuss a professional high impact descriptive speech which leads to an emotional ending. Now the three basic parts of speech blueprint is the sensory hook. This talks about when we open in the center of action using an immediate vivid imagery, which means that when we instantly take the audience's attention into the absolute center using vivid imagery. The second is when we guide the listener's gaze logically, far to near, top to bottom, or left to right. We avoid motion sickness. The third is emotional lending. When you tie your descriptions back to a center message, lesson, or deeply felt emotion will take away. You finish with the impact. This means that when you take your descriptions back to the message, to the central message or lesson which you wanted to convey, and then finish it with the impact, it gives an emotional ending. These are the three parts of speech blueprint which you can use. Now the part 1 is the sensory hook. Here, where we discuss the three parts, we are going to discuss all the three parts in very detail. The first is sensory hook. Now, avoid generic, uninspired starts that put your audience to sleep instantly. This means that you have to avoid boring openings. You have to avoid uninspired starts. For example, you say, today I'm going to talk about a really cool forest hike that I took last year. Instead, use all the sensory hook upgraders which I told you throughout this class. Then you can upgrade this sentence. We have upgraded this sentence into the sharp scent of wet pine needles rushing into my lungs as the forest floor vanished. This brings instant attention. You can use this part to have a very hook upgrades, to have a catch upgrades. Now moving on to the part 2. Now if you jump randomly from describing the ceiling to the floor to the sky and then to your shoes, the audience's brain will get overwhelmed, it will get frozen and it will lose track of what you are trying to say. Instead, always move in a clean structural path. For example, move top to bottom, far to near. This means, for example, if you move top to bottom, skylines down to the earth, far to near, horizon down to my own hands, and then paranormal, slowly turning clockwise. You have to always move according to your listener's perspective along with a clean structural path. Now on to the part, the emotional landing. How can you land on an emotional? How can you land with an emotional impact? Now, the first thing you have to ask is the why. All beautiful descriptions must serve a deeper purpose. This means that why does this place matter? Why does this thing matter? You have to connect this thing, scenery to core feeling. You have to make the audience feel how you feel and why does that matter. The second is core takeaway. You have to summarize your life lesson into a little crisp manner or wisdom earned from this space. For example, you that empty attic taught me that memories never fade. You have to, at the end, you have to tell the core takeaway that you learned from what you told today. The third is final call. You have to end with a high impact statement. You can use a quote, you can use a statement, you can use anything to end to have final call to have high impact in front of audience. Now move on to the model B. Here I have written a transcript and we now break down. We will have a structural breakdown of this model. Now hook. What does hook means is where we sound is sight. Remember in the starting when I discussed sound and sight, here in hook, thick layer of grey dust cracked open. We use sound and sight. Where did we use progression? From end to the window down to the corner. Here we used progression. And landing we have discussed in the last slide is this is what we discussed here. Not a dusty tomb, it was a capsule of art. This is basically a structural breakdown of what we discussed today. Now we have a breakdown challenge. Imagine your dream vacation. You have this is a team activity, and you have to pick one spot where you want to visit, which is your dream vacation. You have to write 3 sentences in 3 different senses using all the vivid imagery that we discussed today. This is a basic activity for you all, which you can do it. Please give it a moment. Give me a moment, please. Okay, am I audible now? If yes, please drop a yes in the chat box. Am I audible and is my screen visible to you all? Just give me a second, please. Am I audible? Okay, thank you so much. Now we will move further of what we discussed. We discussed this. Now, moving on to the basic guidelines of team tool which you have to use. The first is the scribble. You have to be responsible for typing and assembling sensory sentences. This means that you have to ensure that at least 3 senses are represented in your speech in what you are saying. The second one is the timekeeper, which means that you have to keep your focus. You have to ensure that your sentences are written within 5-minute block. You do not have to waste your time. You have to make sure that your time is keeping. The third one is the spokesperson. You have to practice delivering the pitch out loud before you step up actually telling in front of the audience. You have to practice it within yourself. You can practice it in front of a mirror. You can practice it in front of any friend or anyone. You can even record yourself and then listen and then improvise. This is a speaking challenge. What you have to do is you have to select any one and you have to present a sensory, a rich speech where no written scripts are allowed. We are doing this too so that you can eliminate all the adjectives. You can use at least 2 senses and you can match your vocal speed. I'm giving you a minute to think and to write on any prompt which is given below. Okay, now moving further, we will discuss how we can master public speaking. So what you have to do in the first level, you have to develop, and then in the second level, you have to master a standard. Now, for example, if you use sensory details, you have to use one basic detail in the first level, and then in the second level, you have to master. You are developing in a developing stage. In a developing stage, you can use one basic sense, which tells instead of showing, and for slowly mastering public speaking, you can use at least 3+ senses to build an immersive universe. Now here the self-reflection dashboard which I have prepared for you all. The key breakthrough. What is the single most valuable descriptive tool or sensory technique to learn today? Which means that what is the basic, what is the most valuable tool which you learn today? The second, how confident you feel if I call you right now, how confident you feel will be able to speak. And the third is the personal goal. You have to write one pledge on how you will implement that goal upon yourself in the upcoming sessions. Now, for today's summary, we discussed the facts. We experienced that not just hold facts, we deliver experiences, and we learn how we can ban lazy words and we can upgrade those words into what we need. Now, what you have to do is you have to keep this sentence, this which has said, the words are a paintbrush. The listener's imagination is my ultimate canvas. I will never merely report facts. I will construct a beautiful, immersive words. You have to keep this quote close to your heart, and you have to practice each and every day to master public speaking. Now, this is today's homework. What you have to do is you have to prepare a paragraph which contains at least 3 sentences. You have to ban all the busy adjectives. You have to use one simile, one metaphor, and you have to use 3 upgraded dynamic action verbs. I will be discussing this in the next class, and this is a homework which you have to do, which you have to prepare to yourself. Before ending, I would like a feedback for today's class. How much confident do you feel? How much you learned today in today's class in the chat box? I want a quick response, please.
All the participants are requested to put the feedback in the chat box as instructed by resource person.
Okay, my pleasure, Anjali. Anything which you think that we need to improve in our classes? Please do tell if you have. Please do tell if you have anything which we can improvise. We can write in the box.
Everything is clear. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable time to teach us an important topic that helps us to groom ourselves. Thank you so much.